Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're digging into something pretty significant, the Q&A session from Eli Lilly's Q3 2025 earnings call.
Yeah, it wasn't just the usual financial rundown, was it? I mean, those were good, obviously, but the real gold was in the analyst questions.
Exactly. This felt more like a strategic blueprint reveal. They got pressed on some key areas.
Definitely. You could really see their thinking laid out, particularly around that huge cardiometabolic pipeline. You know, how they plan to scale things up massively.
And how they're handling the whole U.S. payer situation, which is always complex.
Right, and then some really surprising stuff popped up about where their CNS portfolio is heading. Neuroscience wasn't necessarily top of mind until this call.
So our mission today is basically to cut through the usual corporate speak, pull out those strategic nuggets, and figure out what it all means, you know, for patients, for the industry. It's a big play they're making.
Massive play. Okay, let's unpack this.
All right, where do we start? Orforglipron. The oral GLP-1 seems like the biggest headline for access.
Yeah, absolutely. Analysts were definitely pushing on the timeline, specifically asking about that national priority review voucher.
And Lilly's answer was, well, pretty clear. They said an all-the-above strategy. Basically, speed is everything.
Right. No single lever. They're just pushing hard on all fronts.
Yeah.
Global submission starting imminently. That's the word they use.
And the U.S. launch for obesity is pegged for next year. 2026?
That's the plan. It's aggressive. A real global push.
It has to be, given the numbers they floated, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. The scale is unlike anything we've really seen discussed before.
Mm-hmm.
They were just talking millions of patients for this oral pill.
Because it's a simple daily pill, no food restrictions, that makes a difference.
The huge difference. They actually used phrases like hundreds of millions or even billions globally. That's their ambition level.
Billions for a chronic medicine. Well, that changes everything. But hang on, the logistics of that are mind-boggling.
Exactly. You can't just say billions. You need the manufacturing to back it up. That's maybe the unspoken part of the strategy.
Yeah. So it's not just R&D, it's building a global factory network unlike anything before.
Precisely. The drug's profile enables the ambition, but manufacturing delivers it. If they can't make it cheap enough, fast enough at that scale.
Then the billions number is just theoretical.
Okay. And how are they planning the U.S. rollout specifically?
Well, two main tracks, driving broad coverage through the usual channels, payers, and so on. That's standard.
But the other track?
Aggressively expanding their direct-to-consumer platform, Lilly Direct.
Lilly Direct. So they're trying to build their own path to the patient.
Sort of, yeah. To get around the usual headaches, prior authorizations, pharmacy issues, you know, the drill.
Reduce the friction points so patients don't just give up.
Exactly. If the demand is there, they want to meet it directly and quickly.
Which leads us to a pretty crucial trial they talked about, the Attain-Maintain study.
Oh, yeah. This one's really important. Phase 3. They're looking at patients who've already lost weight on injectables.
Like semaglutide or even their own tirzepatide. Right, the heavy hitters. And the question is, can they switch to the oral orforglipron pill and keep the weight off? Maintain it.
That sounds challenging. Taking someone off a powerful injectable and hoping a pill can hold the line.
It is. They even admitted it's ambitious, especially for the folks switching from tirzepatide. That sets a really high bar for efficacy.
So if this works...
If it works, it could totally reshape how obesity is treated long-term. Start with an injectable to get the weight down, then switch to an easier, cheaper oral pill for maintenance.
And when do we see data from Attain-Maintain?
They said later this year or early next year, so pretty soon, relatively speaking.
Okay, that data package could really define the future of oral GLP-1s in maintenance. Big binary bet there.
Huge. It either unlocks that massive long-term market or keeps the oral focused more on initial treatment.
All right, let's ground this a bit. All this ambition for orforglipron rests on their current success, right? Mounjaro and Zepbound are funding this. How are they doing?
They're doing very well. Mounjaro's global ramp-up is strong, 55 countries now. What? But the really eye-opening stat, for me at least, was about the international Mounjaro revenue.
Yeah, what was it?
Roughly 75% of it, outside the U.S., is coming from people paying entirely out of pocket for obesity treatment.
75% out of pocket.
Yep. Think about that. In places without broad reimbursement yet, 3/4 of the money is coming directly from patients who want this badly enough to pay full price.
Wow. That says everything about the unmet need and the perceived value, doesn't it?
It really does. It underlines the demand they're trying to meet.
And domestically, Zepbound.
Still ramping fast. The vials, which are higher volume, are gaining traction about 30% of total scripts, over 45% of new scripts in Q3. That volume matters.
Right, because that gives them clout when dealing with payers, PBMs, which brings us to the next big topic.
Exactly, the shifting PBM landscape. They spent a good chunk of Q&A time on that Cigna change.
Ah, yes. Cigna's move to replace rebates with flat admin fees, these AGOO fees. Lilly's take.
They love it. They actually said they applaud this. Framed it as good for innovators, patients, payers, more transparency, potentially lower patient costs.
Okay, they applaud it. But let's, peel back the layers here for our listeners. Is this really about guaranteed lower patient costs? Or is it more about Lilly preferring a system where their drug's clinical superiority wins out over hidden rebate deals?
That's the crux of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
From Lilly's standpoint, absolutely. They believe this levels the playing field.
How so?
Because it makes the competition about clinical differentiation, as they put it, not about who writes the biggest, murkiest rebate check to the PBM.
So if you have the drug with better data, like they argued tirzepatide does compared to semaglutide,
Then in a more transparent system without massive rebates skewing choices, your better drug should win more often. They want to compete on the science.
here's where it gets really interesting. They also had to talk about the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act.
Right, the price negotiation aspect. That's coming for competitors like semaglutide.
They confirmed the timeline, right? The negotiated price only hits Medicare Part D starting in 2027.
Correct. But again, their core argument wasn't about delaying tactics. It was science.
Back to the head-to-head data.
Exactly. They kept hammering the point. Tirzepatide, Zepbound, showed superior efficacy versus SEMA in trials. That's their shield and their sword in any value discussion, whether it's with commercial payers or Medicare.
Better outcomes justify the price, essentially.
That's the bet they're making.
Okay, let's shift gears because there was another part of the Q&A that really jumped out, kind of unexpected. The moves in neuroscience.
Yeah, this felt like a glimpse into a deeper, maybe longer-term strategy beyond just metabolism. Alzheimer's, for instance.
They're really focused on the preclinical stage there, aren't they? People at high risk but without symptoms yet.
Very much so. Two big late-stage trials discussed. Donanemab and Trailblazer 3. That one's fully enrolled, event-based, so results around 2027, maybe sooner they hinted.
And the other one?
Remternetug, Trailrunner, ALS3. Also preclinical, but they're innovating with the delivery subcutaneous injection, monthly fixed duration.
Sub-Q for Alzheimer's, that's a big deal logistically.
Huge. And they know it. What was interesting was how much they talked about the infrastructure needed for preclinical treatment.
Not just the drug itself.
No, they stressed needing awareness, education for doctors, and crucially, a simple and accessible blood test for finding people in those very early stages, stage 1 and 2.
So they're thinking about the entire ecosystem needed to make preclinical treatment viable, building the road before the car arrives, almost.
That's a good way to put it. They're preparing the market.
But then came the real curveball beparatide, a GIP, GLP-1 dual agonist for addiction.
Right. That was the jaw dropper. Taking these incretin drugs born from diabetes research and pointing them at behavioral health.
What's the thinking there? How does that even work?
Well, there's growing evidence, clinical observations mostly, that these therapies might reduce cravings. Well, the non-clinical work they cited showed decreased dopamine release in reward pathways. So potentially, cravings for substances.
So it might dampen down that reward signal in the brain that drives addictive behavior, turning down the volume on the craving.
That seems to be the hypothesis, yeah. And they're running with it. Phase 3 is already underway for alcohol use disorder, AUD.
Wow, AUD?
And they didn't stop there. They explicitly mentioned looking at other really tough areas like opioid use disorder and maybe even immunological diseases like asthma down the line.
So incretins are moving way beyond metabolism. It's brain chemistry, reward pathways.
It completely reframes what this class of drugs might be capable of. It's not just blood sugar and weight anymore.
So what does this all mean? Let's try and pull it together.
Okay. When you look at the whole Q&A, you see this this dual strategy emerging very clearly. Intense innovation, right. Pushing the science into new areas like CNS, developing next-gen molecules. That's prong 1.
Prong 2.
Execution at scale. Making the oral therapy viable, building the factories, using things like Lilly Direct to just get the drugs to patients efficiently. Innovation in operational muscle.
It seems like the lead in this space isn't just about having the best drug anymore.
No, not at all. That's the final insight, I think. The competitive advantage now is that combination. You need the breakthrough science, yes, but you also need the manufacturing prowess, the market access smarts, the ability to deliver globally, both are critical.
So as we wrap up, here's something for you, the listener, to chew on. We're seeing incretins, drugs developed for metabolism, now being aimed squarely at the brain's dopamine reward pathways to treat addiction. What does that tell us?
What does this pivot towards the brain suggest about the ultimate potential of this entire class of medicine?
Could metabolic science actually be unlocking a whole new era of pharmacological treatments for behavioral health, maybe on a scale we haven't imagined?
It definitely feels like the boundaries are expanding rapidly. A lot to watch. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
We'll catch you next time.